Hi, my name is Cherise Janelle, and you are listening to Chapter 9 of Barbara Conklin's P.S. I Love You, book number 1 of the Sweet Dreams book series by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Chapter 9. I lay awake for hours that night, touching my mouth, my face, getting up several times and looking in the hand mirror on the chest of drawers. It was like a miracle. In one day, I had turned pretty. It wasn't just my imagination either, because the mirror proved it. Just the night before, I'd been practicing my smile, and it had been just as rigid as it had always been. But Paul had said my smile was beautiful, and sure enough, now it was. As I tossed and turned, I thought of Paul, and I wondered if he thought about me at all. Then just before I drifted off to sleep, I thought of Elaine, the girl in my bed, in my own house. Was she sleeping, or did she toss and turn like me, listening to the night noises in a strange place? Would the sound of the waves crashing on the rocks below keep her awake? Would the 2 cats next door whine all night and bother her? Had she met someone too? Maybe I'll write to her. I sat up in bed and said out loud, "Why not?" I yawned and fell back on the pillows. First thing, after breakfast, I'd dash off a few lines. I fell asleep at last. It was the very next day that I found the letter from my father. It happened early in the morning, right after breakfast. My mother had intended to help us weed a geranium patch near the pool. "Would you run in and get my orange scarf?" she asked me. "The sun makes my hair dry." I should wear one too, I thought. That was one of her secrets for beautiful hair. I ran to her bedroom, wishing I could drag the air conditioner outside with me. The scarf was in the top drawer of the chest, right near the bed, but when I entered the room, my eyes strayed over to the bed. There, on the velvet patchwork bedspread, I saw the pieces of paper and instantly recognized the handwriting, my father's. I knew the letter wasn't for me, but I couldn't stop reading. "I'll just scan it," the better part of my soul said. But the other part won, and I sank down on the bed and read it from beginning to end. He wanted to return to us, he said. He wanted to be a good father and husband. He said he'd been a terrible fool to leave us, and he begged my mother to let him come back. He pleaded so hard, I felt the tears spring to my eyes. "I've asked so many, many times," he wrote. "Why can't you forgive me?" My eyes darted up to the date on the letter, January 8. The letter was an old one. Way back in January, he was asking to come back. And all of this time, my mother was telling me that he didn't want to. Why? My eyes stung with hot tears as I placed the letter back on the bed, exactly as I had found it. I wouldn't mention it, of course, but my heart ached so painfully. I hoped it would never show in my face. Pulling the orange scarf out of the drawer, I headed back to my mother, my heart feeling like one of the patio bricks. The next few days were so busy, it was well into the next week before I finally got a chance to write to Elaine. Almost all of the daylight hours were spent either on the gazebo or weeding the flower beds. Since Jim could not devote his time to the garden, Kim and I had to. The weeds were hideous, and the sun too bright. Kim and I worked in our bathing suits so that whenever we got too hot, we'd take a quick plunge in the pool. We also had to wear t-shirts to protect our backs from getting broiled. At lunchtime, my mother would call us and we would eat on the picnic bench. Most of the time, Paul joined us, although he devoted at least 3 hours each day to helping his parents in the bookshop. We never got to spend any time alone, however, and I wondered if he'd ever show me Palm Springs as he promised. I also wondered what he did at night. The gazebo was coming along nicely. Jim had stacked up his hand-carved railings against another pile of wood, and his lattice work was almost completed. Finally, I was able to help when it came to the painting. Jim, Paul, and I carefully applied the ivory paint on the structure. Jim standing back once in a while and saying, "It's good. We made ourselves a pretty good gazebo." Paul stood back, brush in hand, his face sweating in the heat. His smile was broad and his blue eyes sparkled with the satisfaction of a job well done. "I love it," he shouted. "Yeah, we did all right." They had good reason for being proud. The little clearing, boxes of nails, bricks for the foundation under the wooden platform, and the paint had produced a most beautiful round sun porch. The hand-carved railings and cornice and lattice work were interwoven like lace, and the cedar shingles covered a carousel-type roof. When I stood back and surveyed it all, a lump suddenly stuck in my throat. I could almost see a lady with a parasol, way back in the Victorian days, running through the flowers, tiptoeing up the 2 steps to the platform. She swung around, seated herself on the cushions, on the bench seats, and in seconds a man followed her up the steps. Together they sat there, sipping afternoon tea, their heads pressed close, discussing their future marriage. They would be married right there, the ceremony on the gazebo. Paul put his hand in front of my eyes and, waving it back and forth, he said, "Mariah, where are you?" "What?" I asked, coming slowly out of my daydream. "What do you think of it?" he asked. "You seem so deep in thought." "I love it too," I told him. "Mrs. Abbott will be crazy about it." Paul threw himself down on the grass, and I joined him. "Now that that project is over," he said, "how would you like to see the Indian reservations, the canyons? They're closed to the public for the summer, but I know a way in." "I thought you'd never ask," I blurted out. Just then my mother appeared in the clearing. "It's fantastic," she said. "It looks like it's out of a picture book." Kim was right behind her. "Wow," she exclaimed, moving toward the steps. "Whoa," Jim cried out. "It'll be a while before the paint is dry, so don't any of you even think of touching it." "Don't worry, I won't let anyone get near it," my mother promised. I got up off the grass. "Mom, Paul's asked me to visit the reservations and canyons with him." "That's great," my mother said, smiling. "Only just one thing." I held my breath. "Yes?" "You'll take Kim with you." "But—" "No arguing," she said, her face serious now. "Kim's bored to death. Besides, I want to take the entrance exams at the college as soon as I get back so that I can line up a few night classes this year. I'll have some time to study not having her underfoot." "We'll be glad to take her," Paul said. "Anyhow, my friend Joe Chino will be going with us too. He knows some caves I'm not even sure of, and he's very well informed. Sometimes in the winter he conducts tours for groups." "It all sounds beautiful," my mother said. "I'm sure Kim and Mariah will love it. I'll make a big picnic lunch so you can tramp around all day." Kim clapped her hands and jumped up and down. "Good, good. Make chicken and chocolate cake and bananas." I wouldn't be alone with Paul after all, but maybe that was good. I had to admit I really wasn't ready to be alone with him. Not just yet. I was still worried about holding a long conversation with him. Still a little concerned because I'd never been with a boy alone before. "We'll go tomorrow morning if that's okay with you," Paul said to me. "I'll call Joe tonight. He has to get permission from his grandfather anyway, so we won't be trespassing." "Is his grandfather an Indian?" I asked. "He sure is," Paul said, "and he's one of the most important in the area." "That makes me feel better," my mother said. "I don't want you kids going anywhere you don't belong." That night, I wrote about it to Elaine. I tried to describe the house, and I tried to describe Paul. I wrote on and on about the Abbotts' beautiful home. But when I came to Paul, I could not find the words. I felt puzzled, but quickly went on to another subject. I told her about the books I had stashed away in my closet, and I gave her permission to read them. I confided that I would like to write like that someday. I signed it, "See ya, Mariah Johnson," and I placed a stamp on the flowered envelope. All I had to do was put it in the box out on Skip-a-Lot Road, and the letter carrier would pick it up. I was doing just that the next morning when Paul drove up in his mother's station wagon. He quickly explained that his own car was not big enough for all of us, and the lunch too, and anyhow, we would be traveling over dirt roads. I'd noticed a Mark V in their driveway, and I mentioned it to him. "That's my father's baby," he grinned. "I have a 280ZX you'll love," he added, "but it's not for this trip." I jumped in beside him and we drove down a side road that led to the back of the Abbott residence. He stopped the car right at the back gate, and we got out to help load the lunch and drinks. My mother and Kim were coming down the brick path. "It's all here," she said. "Fried chicken, melon slices, apples, bananas, cheese cubes, potato chips, chocolate cake, and a thermos full of cold lemonade." Jim put down his paintbrush and helped her with the goodies. "You could get lost for a week in them canyons and still not run out of food," he said, laughing. Kim crawled into the back of the car with the lunch. The sun shone so bright, it half blinded me when I looked at the house and waved goodbye to Mom and Jim. As Paul drove slowly down the road, I caught myself staring at his handsome profile and quickly looked away. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 9 Commentary. In the 1980s, there were very few SUVs, or sport utility vehicles, on the road. There were some models, but the concept had not taken off yet, and that was probably in part to the energy crisis that the U.S. was still in the midst of at the time. The price of gasoline and oil was at an all-time high. Instead, the more ubiquitous family station wagon was the vehicle most people packed up and took on adventures. You will also note that the picnic Mrs. Johnson packs for the day is enough food to feed an army, as the saying goes. In 2025, food consumption is perhaps more on the lighter side. However, back in those days, you could not count on the convenience of quick restaurants or even fast food joints, especially in rural areas of the country. We knew to pack plenty of food, water, and beverages with electrolytes built in, like the types that Mrs. Johnson thought to pack for their adventures in the Palm Springs Canyon. Thank you for listening to Chapter 9 of P.S. I Love You by author Barbara Conklin, published by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Join me tomorrow as we follow Paul, Mariah, Kim, and their guide on a desert adventure exploring the canyons of Palm Springs.